Watching Bad Bunny's Super Bowl performance was so electrifying because it confirmed how important it is that we get to tell our own stories. It exemplifies whoever tells the story controls how we are seen. That's actually why I'm launching a podcast next week. It's a platform for Black women to tell their own stories. Because so much of how the world sees Black women comes from stories told about us, but not by us. So, in this podcast named Mikaila Unmuted, I'll have Black women telling their own stories as a means to disrupt some of the common tropes told about us, including the big three: the mammy, us always as caregivers, there to take care and nurture everyone around us; the mule, the perfectionist hard workers who always step up and does what no one else wants to do; and the maid, the one who cleans up everyone else's chaos. And these are roles that we never chose. Contrary to popular demand, we don't like doing those things all the time for everyone. Those were roles that we inherited by systems that required our exhaustion and our distraction so that we couldn't see the full scope of what was being done to us. One of my favorite Maya Angelou quotes centers around this idea of one of the main roles of racism is to keep us distracted so that we cannot make substantive change. And so the beauty is we're already unlearning these tropes. The younger generations are already built for counterculture. I actually call Generation Z Generation Uzi because they will rat-tat-tat-tat-tat, blow you up if you try to misrepresent or misunderstand them. And I feel like a lot of us older folks are following closely behind, especially after last year's election. And in this freed up space, we finally have room to question what we've been taught to be. And we get the opportunity to give ourselves permission to release what no longer serves us. I think a critical first step is us telling our stories for ourselves, just like Bad Bunny did last night. And in that defiant act, we get to reclaim the fullness and complexity of who we are. And so that's why my podcast, Mikaila Unmuted, which is launching next week, will explore the layered and complex stories of Black women told by themselves, told by Black women, where we reclaim our voice and show that we are beyond a mammy, mule, and maid. This season of my podcast was inspired by a growing disillusionment, discontentment I've been feeling for the last few years. This didn't start only last year for me. Over the last few years, even when my DEI business was doing really well, I was really tired of watching myself and other Black women carry the weight of society while still being undervalued, disrespected, treated as disposable. And last year, that feeling just became too impossible to ignore. More than 600,000 Black women lost their jobs last year, and our unemployment rate surged to 7.3, while the national average sat around 4.4. And watching political power being used to dismantle industries where Black women are most represented, from DEI to government work, those mass job losses didn't feel accidental. It felt designed. It felt like a targeted attack on our economic and social power, pushing Black women once again into survival mode after years and years of finally getting to a place where we felt some level of stability. These attacks felt and are racist, sexist, and personal, but it also has ramifications for wider society. I just saw this amazing CBS Morning News story where they talked about how economists have long argued that our economic fates are linked. When the most vulnerable and marginalized workers are hit hardest by the economy, it's often a harbinger of what's coming for everyone else. It started with Black women last year, But the buck hasn't stopped with us. And we see that with the mass firings, including the one that happened with the Washington Post last week. The goal of this new podcast is to reclaim some of the power we as Black women lost last year. And we can do that by telling one relatable story at a time and redefining our Black womanhood on our own terms with the truth, dignity, and agency we have always deserved. I keep thinking what I would have accomplished and who I'd be now if I wasn't always dealing with insecure leaders or bosses who felt threatened by what I can do instead of supportive. If I wasn't always being labeled or viewed as difficult or angry or a threat simply because I'm advocating for myself and those around me. If I wasn't always expected to clean up every crisis while no one, including myself, had time or energy to focus on what I needed. If my success wasn't treated as an exception, but as a norm, a world where I actually felt protected. My goal with this podcast is to spark a movement of Black women committing to put ourselves first, not as indulgence, but as liberation. This shift in my work and in my career has been a long time coming. Deep down, I've always wanted to work exclusively with and for Black women, people who have a shared lived experience with me, people who I have a shorthand with. But if I'm honest, my own internalized white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism made me feel that my expertise only mattered and would be remunerated when it served everyone else. It made it hard for me to see myself and women who look like me as enough to be the focus of my own work. And now part of my healing is leaning in this want I've been feeling to help create a world where Black women can reach our full potential without being constantly obstructed, exploited, or diminished. A world where we all understand that caring for Black women is one of the most powerful ways to transform society. And by that, if I saw that taking care of myself could be my own form of activism, that it didn't have to always be outwardly looking, that in taking care of myself, I would be still honoring my goal to take care and support everyone else around. That's what I want this podcast to explore.